Where's my sandwich?
Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity. If it's a new year, then it's a new us, apparently, or possibly just the same old us. Today we're just going to kind of do just a chit chat video. We haven't sat down and talked for a while, so we've all got a few things we want to talk about, and we're gonna talk about those things and drink something, and you're gonna watch it, hopefully. So before we start talking, let's start drinking. Kale, what do you have in the night?
I'm having some swill.
That is definitely some swill. Actually, somebody was talking about Avatar the other day and how the new Avatar movie is making a lot of money, and I sort of don't like that because I don't like Avatar, but I was like, but I guess it sort of makes sense in a country where Budweiser is the best-selling beer that Avatar would be the best-selling movie. All right, Brandon, what are you having?
I am having some mulled wine.
As long as it's not moldy. Jim, you?
I was running behind, so I just have iced coffee.
Iced coffee.
Yeah.
Ever since hashtag old fashioned October, I've been kind of getting more into old fashions, or sort of into old fashions a little bit. So I'm having an old fashioned, except I'm using the spiced apple bitters I made. I'm kind of getting into making bitters. It's kind of a interesting little thing. So my own apple bitters, and it's pretty good. Okay, so the first topic, I think that we have been too cowardly to talk about for too long. And I think it's a big, important topic. And of course, I'm talking about the topic of sandwiches, a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. So I would like to first ask, and this is going to be sort of a quick thing, but I'm curious. If you knew you were going to have a sandwich, would you prefer a hot sandwich or a cold sandwich? Sight unseen, you don't know what the sandwich is, hot or cold sandwich?
Hot.
Hot. Brandon?
That's a tough one. Without knowing anything about it, probably hot.
Jim?
I would like both, please. I'm a big sandwich person, but I probably would go cold.
I'm definitely on the side of cold, and it might become clear when I name my favorite sandwich. So that being said, what is, and again, this is a definitive thing, and this is not a ranking. This is a one. What is the best sandwich?
I will go ahead. My current favorite sandwich is the Earl of Sandwich, served at the Royal Mile downtown. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's kind of like a club sandwich crossed with a Reuben. Like, it's got that like Thousand Island dressing kind of sauce, double decker. I don't know. I don't really remember what's all on it, but it's really good.
I should say we are not sponsored by the Royal Mile, but there are a few places I would take a sponsorship for, and the Royal Mile is definitely one of them because I eat there all the time.
Well, it's funny you should say that, though, because the Reuben is probably my favorite. And I couldn't pick a place because the fun thing to do with Reubens is to try many different Reubens at many different places because they're all slightly different.
So what is your go-to Reuben? Where do you go to for your go-to Reuben?
Oh, man. Let's see. There's a place in Woodward that does a really good Reuben.
And for clarity, a Reuben is,
the
I don't know that I've
Donkey,
had
I
one.
think is its name. Say what?
Reuben is like, it's what, like
Production
roast
number
beef and
Reuben?
sauerkraut?
Roast beef.
It
No,
I don't
is.
know.
No, I will tell you exactly what goes on Reuben, because I was gonna say Reuben, or pastrami. A hot pastrami would probably be right up there too. But as far as the construction of a Reuben, it's generally marble rye, buttered. You saute it. You want to heat up your stuff individually before you build the sandwich because you want it to be warm. You got to put together a warm sandwich. But anyway, no, it's corned beef.
Yeah.
And then sauerkraut, Thousand Island or Russian dressing, whatever you want, or Big Mac secret sauce. It's all the same thing. And I put onion on mine, but you don't have to.
Well,
I like
another good place is a place in Ames.
Swiss cheese. Don't forget the Swiss cheese. Sorry.
God, I'm blanking on the name. It's an Irish place. They do a really good.
Oh, you mean
their corn-
Mucky Duck?
No, that's British.
Mickey's?
No, it's down like when you're turning left to go, like you could go to Old Chicago. It's down that road.
I've been there, but I don't remember the name of it.
But
People are
it's
going to love us
it's
talking
one of
about
the
very
best Rubens
specific
out there.
geography of Ames, Iowa.
And the place, the Whistling Donkey, I think is the name in Woodward. That one they add a little bit of cheese to the sauerkraut itself, and it's kind of unique. It's pretty good too.
They also have a really bomb-ass mushroom and Swiss burger that became so popular they actually only started selling it 1 day a week now because too many people order it, so they have to prepare.
So my number one, I got to see what the actual name of it is. It's the so my second, because my first favorite sandwich is going to be controversial, and I accept the controversy. Please send the hate my way. My second favorite is the Club Supreme at Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's is a sandwich shop that has sort of stolen my heart. I go there basically all the time. I think it's like I feel like when there's a sort of cycle of restaurants when they come out where they're good for a while and then they start cutting corners to try and increase their profits and get bad. And that's like where Subway is right now. Like Subway, I think was really, really good when they first came out. And I think now they're kind of like so-so at best. And then Jersey Mike's now is like the new as good as Subway used to be kind of thing. And the Club Supreme is good with just a tiny little bit of olive oil. My one complaint is they have a tendency to toss a lot of olive oil and a lot of red wine vinegar on there. And I don't want all that. This one, just a little bit of olive oil, and that's fine. But my number one, and it's one I've always loved, and I, especially in the last few months, I've sort of rediscovered it. And that is the humble egg salad sandwich. I absolutely love an egg salad sandwich.
I
So please.
suspected that when you said that you were on the side of cold and you didn't think that you would like this sandwich hot. And I figured he's going to say egg salad because no one.
Well, you definitely don't want a hot egg salad sandwich. That sounds like a disaster.
Especially when covered in dog piss.
I thought maybe you were going to say Braunschweiger.
Which is good. I never
I
had
don't
it.
even know what that is. My grandmother used to eat it all the time, though.
It's mushed bologna. That's what it is. It's mushy bologna.
I
thought it was liver.
I will beg to differ. It looks like mushy bologna, but I don't think you taste it and think this is bologna.
Is it liver? Is it liver pate?
Yeah.
It's really good on chicken and a biscuit crackers.
So it's chicken.
Oh, I bet that would taste really good.
It is. It's pretty good.
I'm just
my
looking at
grandma
it.
used to give us.
It describes it as some kind of a German sausage. So that could definitely have liver in it, or it could have, whatever in it.
So Mike and Kale, do you have a local sandwich that you like?
An egg salad sandwich that I made in my kitchen.
Yeah, like I make my Reubens at home. If I get like a sandwich, like when I think sandwich, the first thing I think of is I don't want to go to Subway. Subway sucks. And then the second thing I think is that I want to go to Jimmy John's, and then because I'm recording.
This is horseshit.
And anyway, they make what they call the Italian nightclub, and I order that with the hot peppers. That's like my go-to.
There's two places in Perry that have names that I love. It's the Commonwealth and the Proletariat. But the Commonwealth is a sandwich shop, and they do a really good meatball and a really good Cuban.
There's a food truck in Baltimore that I love because I spent a lot of time in Baltimore for work and stuff. And that is a food truck called Communist Pig. And it is a Russian guy who has like a pork food truck. And he does a few like barbecue sandwiches. And I mean, the aesthetic is great because it's like got a big, like it's a big black truck that says Communist Pig across the side, which is hilarious. And
I do have a caveat about the sandwich thing. We're overlooking a sandwich that I think doesn't get the respect that it deserves, and that is when you go to a family function like Thanksgiving or whatever, and somebody brings those little Hawaiian bun sandwiches with the ham and cheese or ham and butter or whatever, and then sometimes they go crazy and they butter the bread and put the ham and the cheese in there and butter the top of the bread and sprinkle seasoning on it and put it in an oven and warm them all up and then cut them all together apart.
Now, you don't even have to do all that. If you're doing the ham and cheese thing, my grandma used to take the ham and cheese and she'd do the Velveeta cheese and just make slices. And then she would put some mayo on it and then just leave it out for like an hour or so. I don't know. That was really good.
That I think that's like a really popular thing to do in the service industry.
Just leave
Sorry.
it out until it
Yeah,
melts.
just leave it out for like an hour. It'll be good.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
So how do you guys feel about the egg salad sandwich? Am I crazy?
You're crazy.
Do you add?
Although
egg
I
salad.
will say, when I was
Yeah,
younger, I
yeah.
went through a ham salad phase, and I don't think I would.
Yeah.
First of all,
ham
egg
salad.
salad is better than ham salad in every respect. It's not even.
I gotta
it's not a
say though, I
contest.
don't think bread adds much to egg salad.
You can't just have you can't just like eat egg salad on its own. That's
Yes,
that's
can.
barbaric. That's barbaric.
I know you can.
Well, I mean, I know you
I'll prove
can.
it. Watch.
You're an adult. You can do whatever you want.
But do you add dill to your egg salad?
So I don't.
Not- I didn't, and I normally don't, but Andrea does, and it's pretty good.
I'm on the fence about because I love dill and pickles, but I think dill is one of those things that if, especially to an egg salad, like you add too much and it's going to overpower everything pretty quickly. So I think I would add dill as long as it's just a little bit. Anyway, so we've decided that we all agreed the egg salad sandwich is the best sandwich. And I think I really respect you guys for being able to set your feelings aside and come together as a group as we vote for speaker of the podcast.
I seriously cannot believe you brought up sandwich and you came with egg salad and Jersey Mike's.
I love
Does
egg
Jersey
salad.
Mike's
Egg
make
salad.
egg salad.
Egg salad's awesome. It really is. It's just awesome. There's nothing wrong with egg salad.
I
And the
think
thing
it's-
is, the thing that's great about
I
egg
think
salad
it's
is even if
fine.
you
I just
screw
don't
it up,
understand how it's your. I don't understand how it's your favorite. That's what I
It's like-
can't wrap my head around.
so here's the thing. This is serious. So I made egg salad. I've made egg salad a few times. You know, we can talk about the holidays. My holidays were really shitty. A lot of COVID and other shit going on. But anyway, that aside, there was a couple of times throughout that I made egg salad and I could not wait for lunch. So I had an excuse to go upstairs and make myself an egg salad sandwich. It was like, just like sitting there typing away, doing whatever I was doing during the day and being like, in an hour and a half, I get to have an egg salad sandwich. And just
Good
the joy in my mind at the prospect of my own egg salad sandwich was just,
Is that a
Almost more
typical
than I could take.
craving of yours?
no, not typically, but it's good. It's just, and I'm going to probably do more of it. I'd probably make more of it maybe this weekend. Yeah,
I can
it's
understand
egg
that.
salad.
Like if I made tuna fish salad, like I would be like, I could make myself a tuna fish salad sandwich. That would taste pretty good.
I just
So-
want to chime in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to chime in here and say this is a perfect segue for something I wanted to talk about, unless you had something more you wanted to add to the egg salad debate.
Well, I had a
Well-
question.
No, go ahead, Jim.
Do you make it with Hellman's? Because my head's
No.
just gonna explode.
You bring out the best.
No, I make it
No.
with mayonnaise because I'm a human being.
Exactly. If you
Hellmann's
said
it.
Hellman's, I would be like, what? How can you
No.
wait to have something made with Hellman's?
It is light mayo. I do the light mayo. That's my,
The light
Attempt to
mayo
not-
has more zip to it anyway. It's good stuff.
I've got the mayo with olive oil in it. That's pretty good.
does mayo already have oil in it? I mean, isn't mayo, Kale, how do you make mayo? Explain mayo.
Mayonnaise is made with egg whites. Miracle Whip is made with oil.
I thought it was
says-
egg whites with oil.
There is some oil in it too, but I mean the like, okay, if you want real mayo, it's made with eggs. Everything else that's not made with eggs isn't mayonnaise. It's spread or salad topping or whatever you want to call it, but it's not mayonnaise. It's kind of like the champagne thing. Like it can only be legally called champagne if it's from Champagne, France. Otherwise, it's sparkling wine.
It can only be legally called champagne if you make it with eggs.
Exactly.
Kale, I don't want to detract from but what do you guys think? Are you guys fans of sushi?
Oh yeah, big time.
Sushi?
Yeah,
Yeah, huge fan.
me too.
I am a very recent convert.
I really like it, but I've also just recently had my favorite roll ever. It was called the Rock and Roll at Wasabi. I've tried a lot of theirs, but I never tried that one, and I don't know that I'll try others for the next couple times.
So we'll go to Wasabi. The problem, first of all, the problem with Wasabi is you're going to spend a lot of money to go there. Like that place is expensive, even if you only get a couple little things. Like it's pretty expensive. And I like it. No, I don't like it. I love it. I love Wasabi, but I also always feel like it was more expensive than it should have been. That's my one problem with sushi, because I do like it now. And also like the spicy egg drop soup is one of the best things ever. Spicy egg drop soup is the shit.
Very good.
But I just always feel like this was about $25 more than it should have been. I don't know.
I don't know that you really want cheap sushi though. You want to feel safe when you're eating sushi.
It's a fair point.
I've had sushi at Waterfront, which their claim to fame is the amount of freshness of the seafood products they're providing in central Iowa.
Does it smell fresh when you go in?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it doesn't smell like a Red Lobster for sure.
Since we've already been talking about local geography, where is Waterfront
at? There's one in West Des Moines and there's one in Ankeny.
Is it Vanessa? We don't need a lot of seafood, but if we do, we go to Splash and just like splurge, because like Splash is awesome.
That's a high quality restaurant as well.
There's one called Blue over by the Spaghetti Works. I don't know if it's still there, but that's pretty good. That was expensive too.
Yeah,
that's one of those funny places, Brandon, that turns over. And I think it's been about 6 different restaurants over the past like 6 or 7 years. Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's still that or not.
Is it at the corner of like 3rd and Court, or not 3rd and Court, 4th and Court maybe?
Yeah.
No, 3rd and Court. It's 3rd and Court.
Because it was like that place has been changing hands since I was a teenager.
Yeah, but it was there. It was there before COVID, and I haven't had the opportunity to go back. Last I drove by it, it was still there, but I can't tell you how long ago that was.
Yeah,
There's also a tiki bar right there too. Anyway, Jim, go ahead. Sorry.
I went there a couple times fairly recently. It's still open. And they have happy hour sushi prices. So you should try that.
Nice. It was pretty good, as I recall.
We went one time. We went to that Lebanese cafe. I think it's vegetarian even.
Well, you mean across in the East Village?
Yeah.
It's not vegan. It's definitely not vegan. Vanessa and I have disagreements about that too, because I love that place, but she got food poisoning there once, so she's not too hot to try to go back there, but I love it.
The Olympic Flame in the East Village is good too, if you're into Greek food.
Oh, we also went to there's a little, we're just talking local Iowa stuff. This is the chit chat episode, if I didn't reiterate that. We're talking about whatever we're talking about. We've been to Hello Marjorie a bunch of times, because Hello Marjorie is a really cool bar. And Vanessa and I finally got to go to Good News Darling, and Good News Darling is kind of the speakeasy version of Hello Marjorie. You have to make reservations for and stuff, and it's really cool. I could talk to the lead bartender and ask about cocktail stuff, because I have Cocktail Channel. But yeah, Kale, actually, have you guys been to Hello Marjorie?
No.
We should all go to Hello Marjorie someday. It's like the best cocktail bar in Des Moines, by far. Anyway, Kale, you said you had a good segue.
Yeah, because you guys were debating about whether you could eat egg sandwich out of a bowl or if you have to put it on a bread. And I think you could probably put egg salad on a lot of things and eat it, or just eat it out of the bowl.
Kale, this is a family podcast.
Hey, you're the one that took it there. But no, and I thought that was a perfect segue into something I wanted to talk about. And bear with me, because there's a lot of branches in this tree, and I didn't even think
that means
of
it's a kale tree.
I literally just thought of that. And I just realized that there's a tree in my background, and I was like, oh man, I'm a genius, and I didn't even know it. But anyway, ultimate power. And the reason that's a good segue is because as a species, they always say, oh, humans are the most dangerous predators. And it's not necessarily just because of our society or our technology or ability.
Because of mint salad?
But no, because of our ability to eat so many different things. Like we like hunt or harvest like all kinds of things. And, and I think that's what puts us above the other species as far as.
Well, I want to be careful there.
Adapt.
Evolution Generally speaking, there is no such thing as above. There is
There's
no goal or
Or
apex or
more
anything.
opportunity, we'll say.
There's a great Kurt Vonnegut quote where he says, "Just because you can write and do a little math doesn't mean you deserve to take over the world."
Well, okay. Anyway, and then that leads into another thing. One of my friends decided to show me how proud he was of the possum that he got, that he's going to cook and eat. And then he claimed that that eating that was healthier than eating the store-bought meat.
So are you equating eating possums with ultimate power?
No, the ultimate power, that was just a little tidbit. The ultimate power thing came from, I watched a couple of YouTube videos, very educational channel, YouTube. It's got a lot of helpful advice.
YouTube is perfect.
There
We
was
say nothing
one
negative about YouTube on this channel.
There was one about why the Empire in Star Wars was right, and there was one about Ultron and the Avengers and why Ultron was right. And not that I necessarily agreed with the videos, I thought they were controversial, but they were arguing points. Oh, this is why the Empire was good, because they weren't the ones to incite the violence. They were trying to just control these rebels and get rid of the violence in the galaxy and just maintain order. And then they were portrayed as evil because they didn't do what the Jedi wanted.
I think the people of Alderaan might have a slightly different perspective. Oh, wait, no, they can't have a slightly different perspective.
They
can
even
they?
argued that point. They said that Alderaan was considered a mercy kill, or not a mercy kill, but like a
Yeah,
minimum
that's something fascists say.
It's a minimum target. Okay, and okay, so that's why I'm on this subject, because
But here's a real easy moral bar that I think most of us can agree with. That once you've resorted to global extermination, you just can't be the good guy anymore. Like that's just one step too far. You kill it,
okay.
like still you kill one person, it's a murder, kill many, it's a statistic. It's like you kill a planet,
Okay.
then you're Galactus, I guess, and he's gonna always be a bad guy.
You're now the bad
I
guy.
agree with that.
Yeah.
But phase two of this is you segue from that to Captain America Civil War, and about their power, the Avengers' power to go and stop the bad guys or whatever and not worry about collateral damage. And the Secretary of State makes a lot of good points in his speech that he gives them. And even Vision makes a really good point when he says that just their mere existence invites a fight, basically. Do you guys agree with that or disagree with that?
Well, again,
I feel like
it's one of the,
skipping
it's one of
over.
the- Go ahead, Jim.
Isn't it skipping over like the whole Palpatine was behind both sides of the conflict at the start? Like,
Yeah, I'm beyond the Star Wars thing now.
As far as I feel
Yeah,
like people like to take like little fictional things and say, okay, because of this, we have to do this. And it's like, well, first of all, things in real life are complicated. And people who make arguments of any kind of a black and white nature where everything is this and we need to do this all the time. And it's like, no, we need to look at each individual situation and see what we do in that situation. So the answer that everybody hates and the answer that lawyers will give you for almost everything is, well, it depends. And
it does. It depends.
And it depends is not a particularly satisfying answer, but it's almost always the right one.
Along that same line, I don't know is also not always a satisfying answer, but a lot of times the right one.
Right. Well, then phase three. There's phases.
How many phases are in this?
Mostly I side against authority almost every time, just as my starting point.
All right.
Authority is violence to me. I just side against it.
Well, from the argument about should they be accountable for the collateral damage of what they were fighting about in that movie in the first place, I noticed I just had a question that kind of goes along those same lines. In Ragnarok, you see in the Bifrost, they get kicked out of the Bifrost and then they end up on Sakaar. And around Sakaar, all these little fucking wormhole things dropping all this junk. And is that because of the Bifrost? And if it is, is that like from things that like dropped out of it or things that ran into it when they were trying to get somewhere else? Because those things are like shooting wherever they're taking people, and then say something gets blasted through it. Do they end up on Sakaar? And if they do, I mean, are the Asgardians responsible for that, for punitive damages or something?
Well, I'll tackle this one. No, they aren't. It's because clearly there's been junk going on to Sakaar for many, many years, and the Bifrost was just destroyed. Second of all, Thor Ragnarok is a bad movie that I don't like, and Thor: Love and Thunder is a worse movie that I like even less.
All right.
Thor Ragnarok is the best Thor movie.
It's the second worst Thor movie.
I actually love Ragnarok, and it's because it's so ridiculous and so over the top and so flamboyant. Because Civil War is probably my favorite Avengers movie of all, even over Endgame. Because the story is so good and the dialogue is so good and the action's pretty good, and it's just you get a lot of good story out of it. In the serious,
But yes, I think they should also be responsible for the damage they cause and the lives they ruin. Even if they're saving something, they should still be responsible for it. I mean, they even have the line, "With great power comes great responsibility." They should be responsible for it.
That being said, those portals clearly are not because of the Bifrost, because shit's been going on to Sakaar for a long time before the Bifrost was destroyed.
Okay, fine.
Also, I'm just going to throw out there, that's what we have damage control for. They come in and clean up everything.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Damage
that.
control's clearly not very good at their jobs, though. I mean, they're not a great organization.
They got a lot of stuff to pick up, man.
I do have one
So-
more little piece that kind of tags along with that's not related. Just a quick question, and Mike, you can probably answer this real fast, and we can just move on to the next thing. But is the Eternal Flame kind of like an Infinity Stone?
The Eternal Flame.
Yeah, the Eternal Flame that she uses to because it's eternal. It just keeps going forever. It's a flame, and there's like all the other elements of all the other stones. I was just wondering if that might have been like related to it.
Jim,
I don't think
Eternal
so.
Flame?
I don't think so, but I don't know anything specific about the
Is
Eternal.
it just something they made up for the movie?
Which one was that? Which movie was that in?
That was Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
Yeah, I don't like that movie. I really don't like that. I think it's like a comic book movie that has no heart whatsoever. And then he followed it up with a comic book movie that managed to have even less heart. So anyway, I do have a good segue. Bryn, do you have anything to say on the Thor movies? Did you like those last few Thor movies?
I don't know. I'm mostly tapped out of superhero movies at this point.
Did you?
I
bring
did
up-
Black Adam though.
Black Adam was supremely fine. I feel like there was nothing terrible about it. There was nothing great about it. It was just kind of like, yeah, sure.
I think it was a good person to rock.
Yeah.
I thought the other two members of the Justice Society of America were just like drawn out of a hat. Like they just could have been any two random people. It was just like, let's have Tornado Girl and Grows Big Guy. Good enough.
You mean almost Ant-Man?
Almost Ant-Man and almost Storm. So I have one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and in our group, text, I brought this up a couple times, and I feel like I very much have one person who will agree with me and one person who will disagree with me on this. Since Kale brought up the subject of movies, and that is film trailers. I hate film trailers. If I was in charge, so let me clarify. I don't hate all trailers. I hate most trailers, and I think all trailers are longer than they need to be, because I think that when you're watching a trailer, within about 15 or 20 seconds whether that's a movie you're going to want to watch or not. And so if I'm in charge, all trailers no more than 30 seconds long, because in 30 seconds I know whether I'm going to watch or not. So Kale, I know you disagree, and Brandon, I know you agree. So Jim, let's go to you first. Where do you stand on this?
I thought it made my feelings clear. You're wrong. They're one of my favorite parts about going to the movie. I love that before the movie, I get these little mini condensed movies that by the end, I almost forget what I'm at the theater to watch. I love them. I don't
feel like it's a good thing. I feel like it's a bad thing.
Again.
I think they should be required to give you the title of the movie at the beginning of the trailer so I can write it down and never watch it again just for making me sit through a fucking trailer.
Just go into the theater later.
This is the one
real
topic.
times. Honestly, for that and sports, post the real start times. Not when you sing the national anthem, but when the fucking thing starts. Get rid of both of those things. National anthems and trailers, and I'll be happy.
I knew this would be the one topic where Brandon would be even more cantankerous than me. And so I appear to be the moderate now. Kale, why are trailers good?
I enjoy trailers just because it's a little bit, like Jim said, a little piece of entertainment that you might enjoy at some later point. And I mean, yeah, it gets to a point to where, like, if they show you like 7 trailers before the movie, maybe 3 is reasonable, I think.
I will tell you, on average right now for movies, and I go to see a fair number of movies. I am Cinemark Platinum, no big deal. And it is on average 25 minutes per movie, 25 minutes of trailers per movie.
That's insane.
But does that include ads and everything too?
Well, yeah, there's some ads, but that's mostly trailer. That's mostly trailers.
I mean,
there's like maybe 3 minutes of ads, but it's like, because the ads usually come before the trailers, and you get to watch Maria Menounos talked about something you don't care about, and her podcast that I'm sure
they do all the little trivia things.
I'm sorry, Maria Menounos.
Time fillers. But I would say a compromise would be to go back to how they used to just like show like little cartoons or something before the movie.
No compromise. I'm not
Black
having
screen,
it. For the
movie starts. But no, legitimately, even movies that I like, and the one that I thought was there's a new one. The new Ant-Man trailer just came out, which I haven't watched, but of course I'm online. So, it showed some things from the movie that I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see those things. I would I know I'm going to go see that movie. And so don't show me all this shit. But the one that was the worst was Smile, which is a horror movie that came out last year, which is really good. I highly recommend people to go watch. And I said this when I talked about it on the channel, but do not watch that trailer, because the trailer shows not just the scare, it shows the setup to the scare. So you'll be watching the movie and you will see something happen and you're like, oh shit, I saw this entire scene in the trailer. And so then the thing happens, which if I didn't know was going to happen, would have been scary. But I just watched it, I'm like, oh, this is where the thing does the thing. And then the thing does the thing. And it's like, well, that sucks. I mean, it doesn't ruin the movie, but it does decrease your enjoyment of the movie when you literally can watch whole scenes in this trailer where it's like the trailer's like, this is everything that's going to happen in the movie. And it's like, great, now I don't need to watch the movie.
That was a valid argument that Brandon used to make. I remember him saying, like, you're showing me all the good parts of the movie in the preview. So when I go see the actual movie, the rest of it's fucking dumb. Or the interactive menus. And I'm starting to get the hate for the interactive menus thing, because it's like showing you all the scenes from the movie. You're like, no, just show me the movie. Just wait and show me the movie.
And I sure as fuck don't want to interact with the menu.
Brandon, I'm a menu. Interact with me.
We're not friends, menu. Play the movie.
What are you doing, Brandon?
Have you guys watched any like 80s trailers for movies?
No, and I think
Somewhat
what you're going to say
recently.
is something that is probably true, because I was talking to somebody else with this, and they said it's actually not any worse now than it used to be. You've got a different perspective now, and I think you're probably right.
So what I was going to say is that in the 80s, a lot of the trailers just weren't even accurate. Like, they had people making the trailers that didn't know what the hell was going on in the movie. And
They're like,
they'd have some
in a
serious
world.
person voice. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, the one, what was the one we were just talking about in the spaceship episode? The one with the kid that pilots the little.
Oh, Flight of the Navigator.
Yeah, that trailer makes it look like a scary movie. And I'm like they're out in the woods and like the kid falls down. It makes it look like Jason's coming after him, and it's just like nothing like.
Well, I'll tell you, the most famous one is probably Terminator 2. Because in Terminator 2, you have Arnold Schwarzenegger as the villain in the first movie. I'm just getting ready to do a Terminator rewatch myself. But Arnold Schwarzenegger is the villain in the first one. And in the beginning of the second movie, they give the distinct impression that Robert Patrick's character is going to be like Kyle Reese and that Schwarzenegger is going to be the villain, except for the fact that in the trailer, they give away the fact that Schwarzenegger isn't the villain. And it's just like, I don't know, the people who cut trailers, because the people who cut trailers are just trying to get the most asses in seats, and they don't care if they spoil parts of the movie. And it bugs the shit out of me. Like take what's a trailer that I watched recently? Skinamarink.
In this house.
So that's a new horror movie that's coming out later on this year. Very, very creepy trailer. The trailer shows you nothing. It shows you, I mean, there's this creepy voice that keeps saying in a house, and there's this 35 millimeter footage of these like kids like ducking down in closets and things like that. That's the whole trailer. And it's like, yes, I have no idea what that movie's about, and I love it. I know the atmosphere looks great, and I am going to be surprised by it. And that's such a better trailer.
Since we're complaining about movies, I have one more complaint to add to the movie section of this conversation.
I'll allow it.
The like 6 endings of Return of the King.
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone.
From Lord of the Rings.
All right, like it's never over.
Like it's like,
It's
oh,
not
they're
over.
gonna die on the
It's never
volcano.
over.
It's over. Oh wait, no, the Eagles came. Okay, now it's over. No, wait, there's more.
There's a
Now it's
wedding.
over.
No,
No,
wait.
wait, there's more. It just keeps
We're
going.
going back to Hobbiton. Yeah.
To be fair, all of those movies felt like they were never going to end.
Yeah, but that was a complete tease. That was like the screen goes black every time.
At some point on the channel, I'm going to challenge myself to watch the full Lord of the Rings and the full Hobbit extended editions.
You have to watch the
There's
Hobbits
no
first.
way you can make it through the full Hobbits. No way. And I love the Lord of the Rings movies. Man, I fell asleep.
Hobbits, where they
In
made
the-
three-hour
in the-
movies out of a 250-page book.
The regular theatrical release in the theater, I fell asleep. And I think it's the only time I've ever fallen asleep in a movie.
I've still never seen the Hobbit movies. Brandon, Cale, have you guys seen them?
Yeah, I have them.
Really?
They're terrible.
The second one, the Desolation of Smaug, it is actually
Smaug?
it's actually 6.5 hours
Smaug?
long.
Smaug?
You don't realize that. It says it doesn't say it's 6.5 hours long, but when it's over, you've lost a day.
I like fantasy stuff, but there's sometimes you just need to pronounce it the way that it's supposed to be. It's Smaug. It should be Smaug. Just make it Smaug. Like the Smaug, like nobody knows how to pronounce that.
And you're just going to
It's
gloss over
Smaug.
the 6-hour film and focus on how to pronounce smog.
Smaug.
Smaug.
I've given that entire series more than a fair shake, and I just can't do it anymore. I didn't like the book. I didn't like the movies, the cartoon. Just
Truly, you had to have joined the behind the scenes of Benedict Cumberbatch walking around in his body motion suit, doing the dragon.
That's what you missed out on, really.
How can you not like the cartoon, man?
I remember the
I
cartoon.
didn't like any of it. Just
Remember the
all
Crack
it
of Doom
was
song?
just terrible.
The Crack of
The
Doom
what?
song. Remember that one.
I don't
The
remember
Crack of
that.
Doom song, where it's like Doom, the Crack of Doom. I don't know why that is stuck with me.
That what's
30
it called?
years.
Misty Mountain or whatever. That song's pretty cool.
Oh, Misty Mountain Hop.
If you try a
Believe
guy
it.
named Jeff Castellucci, try listening to him sing it. It's pretty good.
I'm gonna skip one thing and we'll come back because Brandon had brought up something that I want to get to. But I feel like there's something else that I kind of had on the list that was kind of related to what we're talking about now. And that is something that I've gotten into recently. And I think this is something I think we can kind of all come together on. And that is talk a little bit about physical media. Because getting into various rewatches and things like that, I've come across a lot of things where like there's versions that just don't exist, or even whole movies that were never released on DVD or Blu-ray or streaming or anything like that, and that you have to own, the VHS or the Laserdisc or whatever to have that media. And I think that's been kind of interesting. And I was very much into the streaming camp, and now I'm sort of diverting back into the physical media camp.
Can I guess which one you're thinking of?
Oh, there's a bunch of them. It's not just one. It's sort of a culmination, but go ahead and guess.
Needful Things.
No, I didn't even think about that, but that is a good one. Needful Things, if nobody knows, is a movie which I guess is not viewed very well now. I think it sort of has a negative connotations now, or is not looked upon as one of Stephen King's best, whatever. So it's like the theatrical version's like 2 hours and change, or 2 hours, something like that, whatever it was. And I remember watching on television a version that was like 3.5 hours long. Like not like where they added 16 minutes of footage, but where they added like an hour and 10 minutes of additional footage. And I've never been able to find that, but there's a whole bunch of things like that. One of the things I came across was the Godfather Saga, which was only released on VHS and Laserdisc, where it essentially they recut Godfather and Godfather 2 together chronologically. So you have all of the Vito Corleone as a young immigrant stuff at the very beginning, and then that goes into Godfather 1 and then Godfather 2, which is interesting. And I think they add like another, I don't know, hour of additional footage into that as well.
For me, I am definitely more and more in the streaming electronic camp. I would prefer to buy a book for my Paperwhite over a physical copy, for instance. That's kind of a big thing for me. There is one book, The House of Leaves by Mark Daniel Lewinsky, that I can't see reading on a tablet. It's got to pretty much be in the physical form. But for the most part, I would prefer to buy my books electronically. I also like the availability. Like if I'm sitting at home, we're sitting at home, we want to watch, oh, we just saw the last episode of Doctor Who came out or something, and I can just buy it and I don't have to go to the store or anything. That's nice.
Trying to save paper, or what's your why do you prefer the electronic?
Well, it's also availability. But if you look at a Paperwhite, it looks almost identical to paper anyway.
Does it burn like paper?
It's just it's very small, like it fits in your hand, so I don't have to like put this, like especially like a hardbound book. I mean, I should have like a permanent indenture on my sternum just because of all the books that have rested there over the years. But I don't have to do that anymore. Plus, if I put 3 of the books I would read into a bag for vacation, I don't have room for like socks or anything. I'm just out. But I put my Kindle Paperwhite in, it slips, it can fit into one of my pants pockets and have nearly an entire library with me. It's superior in almost every way.
I understand. My argument is more about like DRM, digital rights is the idea that things that when you buy something digital, you don't really own it. Like unless you can download a PDF, which there was a time on Comixology. I don't know if Jim remembers this or not, where I don't know if they got sued into it or something, where they actually allowed you to download the PDFs of your comics. But everything else, if it's something you bought online, if you bought it off of Amazon or any other place, digitally, like you don't own that. And they can pull back, or Steam. Steam's another good example. Like if you bought it on Steam, which I have tons of games on Steam, like you don't own it. Jim, I want to go to you because you're a fan of all things like 80s cartoon and stuff like that, and a lot of that stuff's probably not available on streaming services. What's your opinion?
So I'm cheap, so I don't buy a lot of things. But if I see something that I remember enjoying as a child, sometimes I'll buy it. Like I have the complete Dungeons and Dragons cartoon series. I've got some Super Friends versus the Legion of Doom, Johnny Quest. And like you said, part of it is I just like watching that stuff sometimes, and it's not available. Like there was a time when Cartoon Network's Boom network played a lot of that stuff and a lot of good stuff, and they don't play any of that stuff anymore. I don't know where you can watch it, honestly. Thundar the Barbarian, for instance.
To be fair, a lot of that stuff it's fairly obscure. You can find some of it on YouTube. I'm foreshadowing. I'm going to be doing an episode where I talk a little bit about RoboCop coming up at some point. And basically the entire 1980s or 1988 RoboCop cartoon show is available on YouTube. And the cartoon from 1998 is available on YouTube as well in somewhat lesser resolutions. Kale, what do you think
about RoboCop?
No, we're not talking about RoboCop now. But physical media, the idea of owning your media rather than having it streaming or buying it.
I'm gonna make it awkward and say that some would argue that in the
Just
big
gonna talk
picture,
about porn.
our impermanence makes it so that we don't realistically actually own anything.
Right, but I mean, what I'm talking about is more strictly kind of in the now. Like if I want to watch X movie and Netflix now says, sorry, we don't have that movie anymore and you just can't watch it. Like if I have it, I can watch it anytime I want. Once I'm dead, who cares what happens to it?
For preservation's sake, I would like to see, you know, any art form that has been produced, whether it be a movie or whatever, you know, I would like to see those type of things preserved in some fashion, and maybe transferring that data to a different format is necessary, or maybe you can just keep it in the format that it's at and just hang on to it in some way. But I mean, I think that they should be preserved. As far as who should profit from that preservation of that material, I mean, I suppose, yeah, if it's your intellectual property that you created solely, then I suppose, yes, you should have a right to maintain, you know, some way of saying this is mine and you can't just have it. But on the other hand, I mean, if you made it, you probably made it to share it with the world. So don't be a greedy bastard.
But it raises the interesting questions. Take something like I have a good idea. Take something like Batgirl. So it's a movie that was produced, it's entirely in the can. And Warner Brothers has basically decided we're never going to release that, and we're going to take it as a tax deduction. If I ever find that movie to pirate, I'm going to download it in a second, because they're not giving us any other way to get it. If you're saying, hey, you can only buy this movie here or only buy this movie here, I respect that to some degree. But if you're saying, I'm not going to release a DVD, I'm not going to release it on streaming, and I'm not going to release it in the theaters, then you're not giving me any other option. I feel like at that point, we kind of have a right to pirate it, because it's like, you're not giving us any other choice. Like I would pay you for it, and you're not giving me that option.
An ethical argument why you wouldn't pirate that movie. I mean, they generally, you know, advertise piracy as being bad for the establishment, but in that case, I would say that I mean, you should totally do that, because if that's the only way to get it, then I wouldn't have any argument against somebody being like, look, you're only shit canning this because you can't make any money off of it. I mean, it's the same thing as food producers throwing away food because they can't profit from it.
I mean, it's sort of like the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie. Like nobody can complain about people pirating that movie, because they, you know, the studio paid for that so they could put it on a shelf and never show it to anybody. And that's kind of a shitty thing to do to art, to take it and, you know, just put it in a vault somewhere. It's like, no, if I find that, I'm going to steal it.
Yeah, Disney.
Because like you literally give me another option. Go ahead, Brandon. Sorry.
The NFT thing, where like people are spending billions of dollars on like what is it, like a pixel or like just a single art thing or something?
The idea is that you have the digital deed to it. Which I still don't understand how that matters. But
this is created by an AI. I told him I wanted a robot in a bar, and this is what it created for me. Okay, that's cool. I like it, but there's people who will, like, what was it? Like the big one was like a clown or a monkey or something like that. And people were like selling billions for it. I don't know. It was weird. It was a scam.
I feel like that particular bubble has already pretty much burst. I don't know.
Maybe scams do have a way of coming back around after enough people have forgotten, though.
Well, I mean, Trump was trying to sell NFTs, you know, as recently as a few weeks ago. I don't know what the sales were, but oh boy, that's a dumb buy.
Let's talk to Bankman-Fried about it. See what he has to say.
More like Bankman fucked. I'm stealing that joke, by the way. That joke is stolen. Kale, did you have another one? I've a couple of the things I want to talk about that are kind of unrelated. Did you have another thing on your little list?
Yeah, I have a few. Well, let's go local. The other ones aren't super important. I have 3 topics concerning local events here in Iowa that affect us in some form or another. Let's see. Fort Dodge might be getting more police, and they say it's because
Thank
of
goodness.
increase in the crime rate. I wasn't sure if you guys had any thoughts about that or not. Here's one I just found out tonight. There's a group of NFL players that bought 104 acres of Iowa farmland and they're going to use it for profit, and they're going to buy more land when they can. So basically, the NFL players are getting together and they're like, "Hey, we're rich. Let's go buy food."
Actually, that brings up an interesting topic. So we've sort of talked about labor in this country a lot and how, labor is oftentimes fucked and how you can fall into different categories, whether it be labor or ownership. In this case, the NFL players are players, which means they are labor. So in the context of the NFL, they are labor. But that doesn't mean they're always labor. If they go and buy a company or buy land and then force people to work on it or pay people peanuts to work on it or rent it out or whatever, now they are owners. And so now I care significantly less about their interests as owners. I don't know. Brandon, Jim, what do you guys think?
Mostly I don't understand why they would buy land. But
They're buying
making any more of it.
farm to farm to raise crops and sell them for profit, and then they're going to buy more land and do the same thing. They're going to.
Well, that's not all that different than what most Iowans do. I don't particularly care if they live here or not.
yeah,
But most Iowans that have private farms, they don't have the resources that these guys are going to have, or like some major corporate, corporation has that comes in and buys up, thousands of acres, and then they control. Not only they control the land, they can control the market as well.
so I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I think the time of the family farmer passed like 30 years ago. I mean, even where my mom lives in Redfield, almost all of the family farms around her are all being farmed by big conglomerates already.
Well, and there's a lot of problems with what farming has done to Iowa too. I mean, we have very little windbreaks, very little trees. Have you seen the black ditches? The snow that was underneath just tons of runoff from the farm fields and just turned the ditches all black.
It's topsoil.
Yeah, there's been some mismanagement going on either way.
Well, like
Mismanagement here, Brandon, I don't buy that. I'm sure Kim's doing a great job.
My own family, they rent out all their land. Other people farm it. They just rent it out.
I think that one of the things that one problem in this country is the idea of property and ownership. And there are certain people that are owning more and more, and everybody else is owning less and less. This relates less to farming because I think the corporations have basically already bought most of the farms as it is. But when it comes to like single family homes, corporations are now buying single family homes. Like they're buying them at a crazy rate. So that if you're in a place where there's a bigger city and you want to go buy a house as a regular person, you have to get a loan. If you're like me, you get a VA loan that helps out. But if you're even if you're just getting a regular loan, you have to come up with a down payment, all this other stuff. Whereas a corporation can come in and pay 25% above ask and just do a cash offer. And at that point, the regular consumers don't have any option to buy. Even if you have done all the right things, you have your credit score, which we're going to do an episode just on credit scores at some point, because that's a whole thing. You've got the right credit score, you've got your income verification, you got your down payment. But another corporation came in and just decided to pay, 25% more than the property's worth because they know they can make more money off of it in the long run. Then you have a situation where, in the long term, the only way the middle class in this country has ever been able to build wealth is through the owning of homes. Because You pay off a home over the course of 30 years, you now own the home, and you can sell that home for more than you bought it for and buy a new home. And it's a way of building generational wealth. And with corporations buying homes on a mass scale, it is taking away the one way the middle class can still build wealth, which I would say is bad.
But it's not only corporations. I mean, the younger people who are like, oh, I'm going to be a landlord. So they buy like a first house and have other people pay their mortgage, and then buy a second house and have other people pay that mortgage. And eventually, there's less homes for individuals to buy, and they're not doing anything.
That's okay. Like, I agree with that. I have a coworker who's like in his early 20s, and he said if he had the money, he'd buy a couple of apartment buildings. I'm like, then
yeah, but here's the problem with that shit. So what they'll tell you, and I know their arguments, they'll say, okay, what you do is you start off, you buy a duplex and you just rent the other half, and then you buy your next house, and so on and so on. Well, what happens if the heater goes out?
You better fix
What if all of a sudden, you're sitting there, you're cash poor, and you own 3 homes, and you have, you're barely making these payments, and all of a sudden the heater goes out for $15,000, because that's what it takes to, replace a halfway decent heater in a house. So now what are you going to do? Charge it? Or are you going to take out another loan for that?
Hold on, property.
Hold on, Kale. The whole point of this is that stuff sounds great if nothing ever goes wrong with any of the properties. And unfortunately, a lot of those ads are targeted at young men. It gets back to kind of our episode on masculinity, where a lot of these guys view this as sort of they're being masculine by owning properties, and that's the thing to do. And yeah, you can get wealthy that way. You can also go bankrupt that way. In fact, Dave Ramsey, who is one of the biggest assholes in the universe, went bankrupt that way. And he is supposedly the most responsible person, even though he's not. He's, as I said, the biggest asshole in the universe.
Watch Mooncat's video on him.
Actually, Illuminati just did a video on Dave Ramsey recently, which I think she was maybe even not harsh enough on him, but it was a good video. I think ownership is one of those things. It's tough because there is a certain class of people in this country that own virtually everything, and another class of people in this country that own virtually nothing. And that's not a great recipe for, a good social climate.
Yeah.
There's a sci-fi book by Cory Doctorow, and it's a short story book, and one of the short stories, everything, including the kitchen appliances, is owned by corporations, and you have to put in a certain code, or like the toaster, you can only use the corporation's bread for the toaster. And she learns to jailbreak it, and she jailbreaks like the entire apartment building and all this. It's pretty good.
Sounds
It's funny. That's not science fiction. That's American history. I mean, that was what company towns were. They were towns that were owned by the company. And if you were hired, you got to move into a company house. And when you went to buy your groceries, you went to the company store. And that's the way it was. Your paycheck was given right back to the company.
Most of those companies were what?
Assholes.
Probably coal companies.
Well, I don't know. It was a lot of them, but I think it was there. There was other things that were. It's just a matter of labor capture, basically.
Yeah.
The only other local news thing I had is that as we speak, I think Governor Kim Reynolds is giving her condition of the state speech, and the only thing I care about that is her school funding ideas about opening up funding so rich people can send their kids to private schools. That's what it's really all about. And she's trying to paint it in some other color. And it's just, I don't believe her, not for a second.
Well, Brian and Jim, what do you guys think about private schools?
I think I'm ready to open up my St. Innes school. How about you, Brandon?
Well, technically, my son did go to a private school for a while, although it's all run by the same people that run the Boone district. I don't know. It was, for him, it was kind of either that or the local Catholic school. So the options were a little bit limited, but now he is going to public school, and it's pretty good public school.
So
I'm in favor of banning private schools myself. I think private schools are bad because it allows for a certain group of the populace to get out of the public environment so that they can let those schools go to shit. Whereas if
Yeah.
everybody's all going to public schools, then you have to make, because like if you force rich people to send their kids to public schools, those schools are going to be good. Because those rich people they're not going to take their kids going to bad schools.
So I think they should be trying to fix the public schools, which used to be excellent here when we were kids. I don't know if you guys have
Number
noticed
one in the
yet.
nation.
I don't know if you've noticed yet, but we're not anywhere close to that anymore.
Where
and
are
I
we?
think, I think this is an idea that I brought up on the show before, but I think it's worth mentioning in case anybody's listening out there. If they're going to open up public funding for any sort of charter schools, etc., I think the teachers union should get on the ball and open up their own damn schools.
That'd be interesting.
I was just going to look to see where we rank.
I want to clarify that my problem with it isn't that I don't think people should get a better education. I think that it shouldn't be split to where, oh, you get a different education because your parents have more money than those people parents.
But that's what we have.
That's not equality.
So
by the way,
I have a
Jim,
huge problem.
if you wanted one argument for why a good argument to force Iowans into action, just tell them this. You know who we rank below in education?
Missouri.
Nebraska.
Wow.
Just look to everyone and be like, hey, do you want to be below Nebraska?
Bunch of corn hoopers.
Anything?
Where N stands for knowledge.
It does indeed. Yeah, we're right now we're number 15, which I mean, that's not terrible, 15? But again, like Jim was saying, we were number one. I remember that being a big, like a point of pride where Iowa schools are number one.
Number one for a long time. I mean, when I think when Brandon and I, at least, if not you guys, we were at least number one, or sometimes tied for number one with Wisconsin.
Yeah. So I just have a huge problem with taxpayer money going to religious institutions that are teaching religious stuff. Like, that's fine if you want to do it on your own time and your own dime. Like I sent my kids to a private high school that I went to. I don't agree with a lot of things they teach, but I wanted them to have a good education and I was willing to pay for it. And I absolutely don't think that my neighbors should be paying tax money for me to send my kids to a private school where they teach religious crap with taxpayer money.
Just as a quick note, I think this is interesting. So this is from Scholaroo. I'm not familiar with this website. It seems legit, but I'm not putting my weight behind it, but I think it's interesting. So the top 10 in this is in education: Massachusetts, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, Virginia, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maryland, Delaware, Minnesota. I mean, what do these things have in common? I mean, these are primarily northeastern states. I guess some of you Southerners are going to claim Virginia as a northern state or as a southern state. It's not. It's just not it's not a southern state anymore. It's basically a blue state. So let's go look at the bottom. Arizona, Louisiana, Alaska, New Mexico, Nevada, Oklahoma, California, interestingly enough, Alabama, West Virginia, Mississippi, South Carolina. So again, there's a few more liberal states in there, but by and large, you have southern states and states that are more poor.
Like Mississippi.
This stuff is pretty easy to figure out.
I've heard a
I
lot
don't know
of
what it
stuff
takes.
about Mississippi specifically in the last week that I didn't know, like how bad their education system is, how bad their treatment, like what their prison population is doing, and like job opportunities and redlining and everything. It's just,
well, yeah, that's a big part of it too. You have the white flight to the suburbs, and of course that left like a bunch of poor people who couldn't afford to move out. And since schools are primarily funded a lot of times through property taxes, you just had poor houses being taxed, and so they never got great schools, and nobody bothered to, they didn't care that, a lot of poor people are going to kind of run down shitty schools. So
You know what people love? They love a movie about a white person that goes into an inner city school and raises everyone's hopes and gets them to win the academic decathlon or whatever.
It's the white savior trope. By the way, everybody should watch Abbott Elementary. It's very funny. It's a very good show. And the one thing that I think that on the left we maybe do is there is definitely a sense of people on the left making fun of the South and making fun of people from the South. And I think that's a huge mistake, because I have a great degree of empathy for people from Mississippi and Alabama and these other places, because their politicians have failed them. And their politicians have convinced them that they're the only ones that can succeed, even though they've been failing them for the last 100 years. And I think that's a huge shame, because I think that there's great people. I mean, going to the South, Jim just went down to Kentucky with me late last year. And it's great people. It's incredibly kind people. It is welcoming people. And the fact that they have to live in these states where their politicians fail them constantly is a shame. And I do think that people on the left sometimes either demonize them or sort of call them dumb or think of them as less sophisticated.
They also get shit on in their healthcare system.
Well, that's something that's just American.
Yeah, that's pretty countrywide there.
Though they get fucked pretty hard.
We all can do that very well. The one last thing I wanted to mention, well, no, actually, let's talk about Brandon. You wanted to talk about the idea of national anthem at sporting events.
Well, I talk about it might be a strong word. I kind of wanted to rave about it, but I mostly just don't understand why. I don't know why it has to be at every single one. I mean, if you're talking like the U.S. soccer team at the World Cup, fine, whatever. But why? I just went to a hockey game on Sunday. It wasn't full. I mean, everybody knows the song. They brought in a busload of kids from Ames to sing the song. It's like, why are we doing this? Couldn't we just get on? I don't want to stand up. I don't want to take off my hat. I just don't want to do any of this. I want to just go and watch a hockey game.
Well, I just don't understand. So I'm with you. Like what? Like if it's the Olympics or a national team, it's something linked with the country. But if it's
yeah, well,
I mean, a hockey team from Omaha playing a hockey team from Des Moines, why are we playing a national anthem? Like,
well, and especially like
because we all have the same national anthem.
Well, and a lot of hockey players on the team are like Swedish. I mean, they really don't care. It's just it's so much time wasted, and we're supposed to like do the thing, and everybody conforms, and it's just it drives me nuts.
What's that, Cal?
I said, how about a state anthem? Every state gets its own anthem.
There you go.
Don't encourage them. That'll be a thing.
And then we'd have to play both.
I've started a thing.
I don't need an anthem. I don't need a flag. I don't need any of that. I don't need a state.
Play like just Black Sabbath Paranoid before the game. Like I could get into that.
But like say we're gonna get together this month and play a second round of D&D. Are we gonna play the anthem before we get going, or what? I mean, it's just
now we are.
I might play Black Sabbath. That's a possibility.
Ozzy just turned 74 in December. Anyway.
Jesus. Yeah. I just want to bring up one last thing real quickly. And this is something that, in doing various ranking videos and things like that, and review videos, one thing that I keep running up against is nostalgia. And Brendan, I'm going to go to you last because I pretty much already know your feelings on this. But, going back to watch something that you watched when you were a kid and sort of trying to reevaluate that, and people get very offended. Like if you online and say that Ghostbusters was a so-so movie, I feel like people will get very, very angry at you.
Yes.
If you rewatch Ghostbusters, and I think Ghostbusters is a pretty decent movie, but I don't know that it's really anything special. And people are clearly attacking you, not because they, really like Bill Murray in that part. They have this nostalgia for that movie. So I don't know. Kit, why don't you start off? What are there movies that you felt nostalgic for, rewatched, and then sort of reevaluated? And by the way, this isn't like a PC thing. It really isn't. It's not saying, well, this person said this line that I didn't like. There's just a lot of movies where, you're younger and you're an idiot. And you don't understand, like you think something is funny that you grow up and you're like, that wasn't funny.
Well,
So
I will say that there are movies that I've gone back and seen that like I thought were awesome when I was younger. And now I realize they're not as awesome as I thought they were. But that's mostly aesthetics. It's not really like the dialogue or anything like that. It's just like, oh, this would look so much better with today's special effects or whatever. But I couldn't state like a specific one that I thought, oh, well, this movie's actually shit and I used to love it. Because I mean, I'm still gonna like them, even if I feel like it looks grainy or whatever. Like I don't have any specific arguments against any movies.
Jim, what about you?
More so with books than movies for me. I feel like
God, we get it,
cool.
Jim. You read books. You're super smart.
So I feel like, kind of like Gail was saying, I feel like I automatically grade movies and TV shows on on a curve. I feel like I automatically take into account when they were made and how good the special effects could be, etc. And
Well, to be fair, I'm
the
talking more
stuff I like.
contextually. Like less the way something looks is more like so like I think probably the best example is, let's take for example Revenge of the Nerds, which has become very uncomfortable to rewatch given
Can
the
you
sort
say
of
that
content.
again? I missed what you said.
Revenge of the Nerds, which has become difficult to rewatch given the content of that film.
You mean the part where he tricks a girl and statutory rape and all that?
No, it's not statutory rape. It's just regular non-statutory.
And apart from that, what about they're selling the pies with the topless picture on? And how they get the picture? Would that be legal to distribute that to the public?
Well, no, I mean they literally go into they break into the female's dorm and it's like stealing their clothes and taking pictures of them and like put cameras in their showers. Like it is like they should all be in prison.
Yeah.
It's college.
So Jim, when I'm talking about this, I'm more talking about the context, not just special effects, because special effects age oddly. There are some like for example, I think for me, the original Star Wars holds up pretty well from a special effects perspective, sans the George Lucas stuff that he did that is awful.
Oh, the extra.
Whereas if you look at, for example, the prequel trilogy of Star Wars movies, they look largely pretty bad, even though the original Star Wars is older than the prequel trilogy. But that's not really exactly what I'm talking about. But I think you kind of get what I'm saying.
Sorry, you froze up. Did you ask me a question?
He was asking you if you had any ethical arguments about any movies that you used to watch.
Am I still frozen?
Not really, that I can think of off the top of my head.
In that case, I believe I will let Brandon off his collar to talk about nostalgia.
It looks like he's about
Nostalgia.
I'm removing his choke collar right now so we can talk about nostalgia.
Well, first off, knowledge is cumulative and tastes should go from refined to sophisticated as you age. You shouldn't just be like, okay, I like this thing in high school, I'm just going to continuously like this thing. The only way that should even be possible is if you spend the rest of your life in a prison cell or in a coffee can or something. Like if this is all you ever do at 18 and that's it, you were then in solitary confinement, fine, like that thing. But we should be moving on. And there's just nothing about my childhood, no matter how good it was, that I want to revisit. Somebody asked me the other day if I wanted to be 20 again. And I was like, no, nothing about that is something I want to redo. There was many great parts about it. I never want to see it again.
To be fair, I would like 20-year-old knees again. That would be nice to have.
And that's not to say there is some, great artwork. There's some great books and some good songs from, all kinds of eras all over. And I don't mind re-listening to those things on occasion. But this idea that, like, Mike was talking about the Ghostbusters movie, I've had that exact experience where I was like, Ghostbusters was meh. It's not really one of my favorites. And people got angry at me about it. I don't understand it. There's so much new and so much to experience. And, I have a record player. And I kind of think it's fun to get like, a vinyl and the artwork on the cover. That's one thing I do miss is like album cover artwork. It's kind of an art unto itself. But my dad asked me if it sounded better than the digital. And I was like, no, it can't. The digital remastering of something is just so much better and it never degrades. Records will get scratched, they'll get dirty. That's just a thing that happens with owning a physical thing. Physical things deteriorate. It's fine to move on. It's fine to listen to new music. It's fine to read new books and try out new things. It's also fine to get rid of old ideas. I remember as I grew more, I grew up in a very religious household, very conservative household. And I grew up thinking gay people were icky and all that. And as I started to get more sophisticated in my thoughts and older, I started realizing that that's stupid. Gay people are just people. Who cares? They do whatever they want in their own time, in their own house, or even if they do it in public, who cares? That's people enjoying the only life they're ever going to have to their fullest extent. More power to them. They aren't hurting anybody else. They aren't interfering with anybody else's enjoyment of their life. And I still have people that will say, well, that's not what you said in high school. Right. I'm almost 47. Who cares what I said in high school? I have had more time out of high school than I was in high school. And I didn't know anything in high school. I mean, we were lucky to have encyclopedias that were outdated by the time they got to the school. Who cares what I said in high school? That time is long gone, and everything about it should be forgotten. I'm just lucky that I was a teenager before recording things and putting it onto TikTok ever happened. So all the dumb things I thought back then can only be, known through me.
If I had a Twitter account when I was 14 years old, oh God.
Yeah. It would have been an embarrassment now.
The one thing I will say, and I think you're right about this, and Jim, I think you will agree with this too. And there's a guy that I saw at a comic convention who will do basically his own movie posters of new movies, because movie posters do suck now. All movie posters are just like four heads floating in a thing, whereas you used to have like some shitball horror movie and they would get an actual artist to design like the craziest cover, which by the way was mostly bullshit. Like the cover would contain like 4 elements that were not in the movie, but it doesn't change the fact those posters were awesome. And posters now really mostly suck because it's just like 6 heads and like 2 people with swords in a black void. And like, I feel like you could put that together in Photoshop in 5 minutes.
A rule of thumb, if there's somebody on the cover of a VHS cassette holding a gun, if your 2 main characters are holding a gun on the cover of your VHS cassette, you've made a bad movie.
Unless it's Mean Guns, because Mean Guns is perfect.
Are you saying the 2 people are holding the same gun?
It doesn't
like fighting for it.
They're like holding it in a loving embrace.
I will give. Go ahead, Jim.
Brandon, I was just going to say, I'm glad that all the stupid things you said in high school are not on TikTok. Unfortunately, most of the stupid things you said last year are on podcasts.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. It is not recorded. That's true.
Now our the dumb shit we say is out there.
Right.
Thankfully, now we're outside of the age bracket where anybody gives a shit what we're saying anyway. So that's
right.
Right. So I was going to ask you, Brandon, I mostly agree with what you're saying. What do you think about people who say if you go back to read a book that you read, say when you were in high school, it's not the same experience because you're not the same person?
books are kind of a I don't know. You would call them a special case for me, kind of a special pleading. I used to reread a whole lot, and I don't do that much anymore because there's just too many on the list to get through.
Wait a minute.
But
You'd go back and read stuff you already read?
I've
On
got a couple of
purpose?
books I've read 13 or 14 times. But I don't know. For me, that is less nostalgia. There's sometimes I reread a book specifically for a part or a feeling that comes with a certain part. But again, I don't really do that anymore. I have tried to branch out. That too is part of the growth from unrefined to sophistication.
But I think also there's another part to that. And again, people that watch the channel for more than 5 seconds know I'm a bit of a Vonnegut fan. And for me, sometimes going back to the same book, and I've read all the Vonnegut books at least I think 3 times, you get something, you read it differently and you get something else out of it. So for example, maybe the first time I read Sirens of Titan, I got one thing out of it, but then reading it as an older person, as I'm now an older person, I still like it, but maybe I like it for different reasons and I take different things away from it.
Yeah, that's true. I'll say, Jim, to your point a little bit, and kind of with Mike's, I read, like I made it halfway through The Stand the first time I tried reading it as a sophomore. Somewhere along the line, I lost the book. So a few years after that, I made another attempt and I made it all the way through. And I really liked The Stand. About 3 years ago, I attempted to reread it. And about halfway through again, I was just like, I don't care about this. This is just not as good as I thought it was, or as I remember it being. Like all these years since then has built up this thing in my head that was better than it actually was. Going back and rereading it and going back to the reality of what the book actually was, I was just like, I don't think I would rate this very highly if I read it now as older me.
So I had that experience trying to go back and read the original Foundation trilogy. Like,
yeah, I did too, a little bit.
So Jim, before you, I wanted you to talk
that.
about that, but I wanted to mention that I am in the Empire trilogy, which is such a weirdly named trilogy because it's not really about the Empire, like really at all. And I'm having a tough time even getting through it. So I'm interested to see if I go back to the Foundations to see if I'll like them or not. Because I remember loving the Foundation books. I thought they were amazing.
Well, but they suffer some of the Revenge of the Nerds problems. There's a lot of misogyny and, mansplaining and all this kind of stuff in there too.
I mean, honestly, I think that I'm afraid that I'm going to end up with the conclusion that the Robot series is the best series he wrote because it's very simple. And it's kind of clever. And yeah, there's some mansplaining. But again, I disagree with you insofar as you shouldn't expect a book that was written 50 years ago to be like a book that was written today. Like there is going to be things that are wrong. And I think that you should judge it based on its own context. And that also doesn't mean you forgive anything that it's saying wrong. I think it's a complicated, it's complicated to read things like that. Because let's say you were to reread a book written by somebody who is a slave owner in the South in the, early 1800s. Like you would have to read that in a very specific way. And it doesn't mean you forgive anything they're doing, but it also doesn't mean it's a very specific way of reading. And I think it's very tough.
But who you currently are should have some effect on your enjoyment of it or your, there's an idea of this death of the author. And I think that's right. I don't think the author gets to have final say over what the book is about, because I think that's contextual to each reader.
Well, that's like what's his name? Speaker for the Dead and
Orson Scott Card.
Orson Scott Card. Orson Scott Card is sort of an easy one because, like, if you buy an Orson Scott Card book, you're giving money to Orson Scott, who is then going to give that money to a charity that is supporting, gay conversion therapy. Whereas, take somebody like God, names are escaping me right now. Not Edgar Allan Poe, the other great horror author of that era.
Lovecraft.
Lovecraft. And Lovecraft was an awful person. But also, when I buy a Lovecraft book, Lovecraft isn't getting into that because he's been dead for 100 years. And so in that case, is this sort of literal death of the author rather than the figurative death of the author. And there, I think when the author has literally passed away and they're not getting any sort of financial benefit from their work anymore, then I think you can sort of switch to a mode of being more introspective about their work. Whereas Orson Scott Card is still doing shitty things, so I don't have to be introspective about his work anymore.
Was there anything controversial in the Brian Lumley books?
God, I haven't even hardly thought about those.
Those weren't ones I reread though.
Yeah, I never reread them. I just remember them being kind of fun vampire. I mean, that's sort of different because it's kind of more pop fiction of like, it's just a cool vampire book. Like, it's not really, I don't think Brian Lumley was trying to make any greater societal points about anything. He was like, and then this guy killed the vampires and it was cool.
Yeah. Well, that one
Psychomech?
the like vampire one, or not vampire, the dystopian one with anybody over the age of 19 dies.
Was that Lumley? No, you're thinking of Simon.
No. Yeah, Simon.
Blood Crazy.
Yeah, Blood Crazy.
Yeah.
That one is essentially a rock video in book form.
Yeah.
That one's just fast and fun and inconsequential. But there's some, like, you can read older books that are from a different generation for the first time and have your own unique reaction to them now. It just, the nostalgia part just seems like you're bringing in the baggage of all this stuff you used to be. And I don't even understand why you're carrying that load with you. I don't know what it gets you, except viewpoints that should have changed and this imaginary high bar that you're supposed to keep trying to go over. I mean, I know people in their 50s who still go out drinking at the club, and it's just like, why? Why do you do that? Who enjoys that?
What? What?
Yeah.
No, I have a personal analogy to that. Like, I watch basically the same old Top Gear videos like all the time because I have like favorite ones, and my phone just automatically pulls them up when I start typing it in. And my wife can attest to that because she gets bothered by it. But I mean, I'm not sure why I cling on to it. I mean, I have a passion for the cars, so I mean, I enjoy watching the video about the car. And there are things that a certain person on that show used to slip a few things that were inappropriate to say in public spaces. And like, I just kind of gloss over that because I'm not watching it for the person, I'm watching it for the vehicle.
That one's a tough one though, I think, because, like, by the way, Clarkson's a piece of shit, and he got fired because he attacked a producer. I mean, it wasn't, I feel like a lot of that is, if you watch some of their stuff on Amazon, like, it's like, oh, we got fired for being non-PC, and it's like, no, asshole, you got fired because you attacked somebody on the show. Like, you would have gotten fired from literally any, like, you can't punch somebody you work with. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
That being said, Top Gear, like, yeah, they did a lot of really good videos. They did a lot of really well-produced, well-put-together videos, and a lot of it was a lot of fun. And so it's complicated. I mean, that's the problem with all these things is it's complicated. And on most of the videos, they're not being racist or sexist or just generally shitty. And so the idea that you still have sort of positive feelings towards those things doesn't make you a bad person, because it's complicated. And it's sort of like earlier we were saying, like, what's the answer? It depends.
It's 42.
Well, that as well. Well, I feel like we've talked randomly about random things in a random way for long enough. Just real quickly, I think we'll go around. Do you guys have anything to say about the new year or about the previous year, or what you think about you're going to do in the new year, or whether or not we're just going to keep doing what we're doing? Kale, what do you think about the new year or the old year, whatever? It's chit chat, so I'm leaving it really open.
All kind of a continuous stream. This whole new year, new me thing is a fad. I don't, if people are willing to change, it's not because it shouldn't be because, oh, well, it's the new year, or it's because it's my birthday, or it's because this was the date that somebody died that meant a lot to me, or something like that. It should be your personal choice to be like, I don't like this thing about myself and I'm going to change that thing. Or you rationalize and you accept the fact that you're a fat bastard and you're not going to go to the gym. But no,
this feels kind of personal.
No, I don't do it for anybody else. Just do it for yourself. If you even want to. And if you don't, who cares?
Brandon, Simon Clark.
Yeah, right. Simon Clark. Well, so far this year's already been pretty interesting. My brother-in-law finished his degree and is accepting a job back here in the States, and they will be moving back here.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. He's got an industrial engineering degree now. I have been asked to go from my job in Huxley to the Ankeny building, not as a permanent thing so far, but as a long-term assignment. And I'm basically doing projects like building things for Kaizen events. So I spent like the entire day today making this giant frame and putting wheels on it and hydraulic lifts on it and all this kind of stuff that is really out of my comfort zone. But it's been kind of interesting and it's changed my hours. I've gone from 4 10-hour days to 5 8 hours again. So I don't know. So far, the New Year's been pretty topsy-turvy.
Fair enough. Jim?
So this year's going to be a big change for me. I got 2 kids and my youngest is graduating from high school and moving out. So we're going to be empty nesters. We're thinking about selling our house and doing some crazy things, like maybe moving in part-time with my mom for a while. And another crazy thing is my youngest son and I are going to go to Cuba in a month.
Really?
Nice.
I am very jealous.
We're trying to find some place. We wanted to go on a vacation for his graduation, and he wanted to go someplace unusual, and Cuba was remarkably affordable and possible to go to. I didn't know for sure if you could, but you can. So you just can't go as a tourist, but you can go on a general visa to support the Cuban people.
By the way, you're required to bring me back a bottle of rum, right?
I will see what I can do, man.
He smiles like I'm joking.
I want
I don't think
pictures
you're joking.
of all the old cars that they keep running.
I know it's fascinating because they didn't have cars allowed to import for forever.
So yeah, they kept all those like 50s cars alive for years and years and years.
Yep.
I would highly recommend you watch a movie called Juan of the Dead. It is a zombie comedy that was produced, filmed, everything in Cuba, and it is very, very good. It's very clever and it's very kind of it's cleverer than the name. I liked it a lot.
It's got to be better than Ass Zombies.
Hey, the ass zombies in Doom Patrol are fantastic.
No, there's an actual movie called Ass Zombies. I think it's from Japan.
But in Doom Patrol, there are ass zombies.
Okay.
And Doom Patrol is a perfect television show.
It's because Brendan Fraser's isn't.
Oh my God. How is not everybody watching Doom Patrol? It is so good. It's just ridiculously good.
Are you guys going to watch The Whale?
No.
Yeah. I mean, Vanessa and I watch all of the Oscar nominated movies, and it seems like that will probably get nominated for Best Picture or Best Actor, or maybe both. Although some people are saying it's kind of insensitive because Brendan Fraser has put on a little weight, but he's definitely not as big as the character in that movie is.
It's called acting.
It's called acting. Acting.
I was really acting.
There's an account. I don't remember what it comes from. I've never been able to confirm it, but apparently between Dustin Hoffman and Sidney Poitier, and Dustin Hoffman is sort of famous for doing the very method style acting, and like staying in character all the time. And Sidney Poitier was apparently told him one time, "It's called acting. You just act." And it's such a great line from somebody who is clearly a really great actor of like, no, here's what you do. You just pretend while the camera's on that you're not the person that you are, and instead that you're the person you're pretending to be. And then when they turn the cameras off, you just go get lunch. That's it.
I think
Jim, one of these days we should go and do another sci-fi book video, because I just finished The Player of Games, and I didn't know if you've read any of the Culture series.
Yeah, I love the player games. That's good.
Yeah, that is really good.
Yeah.
Wouldn't mind talking about it.
Look at these nerds reading books and shit. Just closing out for me. We had a real rough holidays. My wife and I both got COVID, and then my dad got COVID. And my mom had a health scare, and so it's been kind of a pretty crazy holiday. But things are kind of evening out now, and we're trying to just. I'm in the process of not planning any trips. We went on lots of trips last year, my wife and I together, and then I on my own, and then I went to the gym, and it was just kind of like a lot of stuff. So I'm looking forward to a couple of months of not going on any trips and just kind of relaxing at home. So I think if I give any New Year advice, just try and be happy. Try and just do things that make you feel happy, and try to not do things that don't make you feel happy, which is some simplistic bullshit, I understand, but I think it's still honest, good advice.
Way easier said than done.
Oh, no shit. That being said, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I also wish you a happy new year, and have a good drink and have a good day.
Yeah.